are so many things to get stressed out about in life, but getting rid of your stressors doesn't actually get rid of your stress. That's because stress is a physiological reaction. Stressors are events or things that create that physiological reaction. And if your body is in a state of constant stress, then that increases your risk dramatically for tons of chronic diseases. So when it comes to actually managing stress, it's all about dealing with the physiological component. And there is one simple way to do that. And I'm going to teach you that today. Like I mentioned before, stress and stressors are not the same thing. Stressors are things like parenting, exams, traffic. You know what I mean. As moms, we have tons of things that can make us feel stressed. But there are other things that can be really stressful for us as well, such as chronic illness, lack of sleep, being undernourished. Any physical lacking we have can cause stress. Sometimes there's things we can eliminate and sometimes there's not. It's important to know when our plate is too full and when to cut back, but we're inevitably still going to get stressed out by the things on our plate. So reducing stressors doesn't necessarily mean you'll be less stressed. And this is why we have to learn how to manage our stress. It's unavoidable, but that doesn't mean it has to be unmanageable. To learn how to properly deal with stress, we need to have a basic understanding of what's happening in our body when we're stressed. Now, this entire stress response is critical for keeping us alive. That's why our body does it. It goes back to last week's principle about homeostasis. There's two sides to the teeter-totter to keep us in balance. And for stress, one of them is the sympathetic nervous system and the other is the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is what you'd call your fight or flight mode. Its job is to put your body at peak physical performance mode so that way you can outrun or you can fight off a threat. Way back in the day, threats were typically physical of some sort. Either there was a wild animal that was chasing you, or starvation, or physically fighting other people, like tribes and clans would fight against each other. So there was a lot of physical stressors, and we needed to be at optimal physical functioning to survive that. So our body naturally increases our blood pressure to supply blood to all of the essential things to help us with our survival. It's going to improve our brain functioning and cognitive capacity. Your heart rate's going to increase. You're going to breathe faster to get more oxygen into your lungs to send throughout the body. And it's going to increase energy availability in the blood, which also means it's going to spike your blood sugar. The parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, is your rest and digest mode, or they also call it feed and breed mode. This system prioritizes metabolizing the food that you've eaten, storing extra energy for when you're gonna need it the next time a stressor comes up. It's a time when you can rest, you can cry, go to the bathroom, all of those kind of functionings that you would do when you're in a more restful state come from activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. In this mode, you're going to notice that all of those physical symptoms are going to go the opposite. So you're going to start breathing less, your heart rate is going to go down, your blood pressure is going to drop, and that's exactly what you would expect to happen because that helps the functions that the parasympathetic nervous system optimizes. So you can see how these two nervous system responses are opposites of each other, right? Creating that balance. When something stressful happens, our brain will signal that that is a stressor, that that's a threat. And then it will send out a signal to the entire body to go into stress mode, essentially. The brain is activating the sympathetic nervous system. And this response is the same no matter what the stressor is. It does not matter what kind of stressor it is, it's the same physiological response. When you're in your fight or flight mode, your body is going to work in overdrive in certain areas of the body, and then at the other side, it's going to dramatically repress other systems to prioritize your survival in that moment, not long-term, in that moment. So it's good sometimes, we need that. We need to be able to react quickly, but it is very bad for us when we're constantly activating the sympathetic nervous system. And if that's bad for us, then obviously the answer is to shift over into the parasympathetic nervous system activation. That makes sense, right? We'll just swing to the other side to kind of balance it out. But how do we do that? By completing the cycle. Now, this is a concept and technique that I learned from Emily Nagoski in her amazing book, Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. It's an amazing read, will change your life. So if you haven't read it, I strongly recommend that you do. But if you don't have time to read it or you don't like reading, I've read it for you. You're welcome. Back to the cycle. We aren't talking about your menstrual cycle here. We're talking about the stress cycle. Let me walk you through it. There are 3 steps in the stress cycle. The first is the beginning, where our brain detects a threat. The middle is where our body determines which response, whether fight or flight, is more likely to ensure our survival. Then we react and we either fight off the bear or we run away from the bear and live. And we get to a place where we're safe again and the threat is no longer there. And that's the end. At the end, we heave a big sigh of relief and all is right in the world again. Now, if we perceive a threat and we don't think that we'll survive by fighting off the threat or by running away from it, what else do we do? Well, we follow the example of the fainting goats. Yes, we freeze. We don't tip over most of the time, but we do freeze. We play dead, so to speak. Our body deems that we are more likely to survive by playing dead than by fighting or fleeing. In our world today, most of our threats aren't physical, so we often find ourselves stuck in the freeze of the stress cycle. For us to stop being in the freeze state, we have to complete the cycle. This is the key to managing stress. In order to complete the cycle, we have to do something that would mimic finding safety or achieving safety after running away from the threat or fighting it off. There are many ways that we can do it, but I'm going to give you some of the best ones. The very best way, the most effective way to complete the cycle is by doing something physical. Fighting and fleeing are both very physical acts, and the sympathetic nervous system is giving our body all of these things to help us physically perform and for us to physically operate at our best level. So when we start moving, we actually start utilizing what's happening physiologically to our benefit. And then obviously, as you know, after you stop exercising, you start to slow your breathing over time, your heart rate comes down, your blood pressure is going to come down, and you're naturally activating that parasympathetic nervous system, thus completing the cycle. Now, if you hate exercising or moving, then I've got something else for you, because I totally get it when there are days that we just don't want to do too much, right? A way you can mimic physical activity is by doing really tense body contractions and repeatedly doing them, because this is a muscle contraction. It's utilizing all that stuff. And then as we release and continue that contraction release, we're mimicking physical activity or physical movement. And that can help us complete the cycle. Next up is deep breathing exercises. Remember how in fight or flight mode, our heart is racing, our blood is pumping, and we are breathing so much to get enough oxygen to our muscles to help us function. By deep breathing, we are going to be doing the opposite of that. And as we slow our breathing down, we are actually going to be activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And then we have completed the cycle. The next one is a little bit surprising. Having small talk is another way that we can complete the cycle. If the world was falling apart around us, would we stop to have a conversation with the barista? Probably not. We would not be talking to the cashier at the store, would we? We'd be in and out without even acknowledging that we're interacting with another person. As we engage in these superficial interactions, it signals to the brain that we are in fact safe and that we can stop and chat with somebody in line next to us. And that can help us complete the cycle. Who doesn't love a good laugh? Laughing is an incredible biological mechanism that helps us relieve stress. We don't just have big belly laughs if we're stressed out of our mind, right? So we can complete the cycle using laughter. Strengthening deep, meaningful relationships is another way to complete the cycle. And that's because affection and connection are a huge cue for safety. So you can tap into this by hugging someone for 20 seconds or more, or even kissing your partner for 6 seconds. It would be a very awkward 6 seconds if you did not feel safe with that person. So you can kind of see how having this affection can really help to signal to our brain that we are safe and that we are protected, that we are not in danger, or that there is not a threat near. And these kinds of affection often just melt our stress away. Of course, a good old cry is sometimes the best thing that we can do. Crying is another physical mechanism that we can utilize to process all of the stress that we're feeling. A real cry is quite a workout, and you'll notice by the end of it, there will be a big sigh of relief that, okay, I can go on. And that's how you know you've completed the cycle. Any creative outlet is also a way that you can complete the cycle. The arts encourage expression of emotion, and being able to create that or visually appreciate it allows us a chance to feel and work through those emotions. For example, if we were to sit down and watch The Notebook, we will begin to feel all of the emotions that the characters are feeling throughout the story. As we watch their journey and feel their emotions, we are physically feeling it, and so we are able to go through and come to that resolution by the end of the movie that will complete the cycle for us. Self-compassion or self-care is another way that you can complete the cycle. It cues that we are in a safe environment and location to be able to take care of ourselves. When you're too stressed, you're not going to be doing an everything shower or spending time to get your nails done. Having a nighttime skincare routine is a great way to signal to the body that the day is done and that you're able to actually wind down and get ready for bed. The last idea I'm going to mention, like I said, this is not an all-inclusive list. This last idea is a brain dump. Writing things down, accounting for everything, being able to unload our mind with all the to-dos that we have. And as moms, our minds are constantly going. So being able to practice this offload is a really great way to slow down and process things. The simple fact of knowing that things are accounted for and that we won't forget something takes a tremendous amount of weight off our shoulders. This can restore the feeling of safety and thus complete the cycle. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, how do I know if I've completed the cycle? And the answer to that is you'll know. You will physically and mentally feel different. It's like the feeling you get when you've just woken up from a relaxing nap on the beach. It's that big sigh of relief that you haven't been hit by a car that you swerved out of the way from. It's that calm that you feel when you're rocking a baby to sleep or snuggling with your partner in bed. You'll be able to feel mentally present, not worried or thinking about other things. You can't always change your stressors. You're always gonna have the kids, you're gonna have to go to work, you're gonna have to clean up the house, but you don't always have to be stressed. You can find peace in your day-to-day. So what I want you to do moving forward is to find a way to complete the cycle on a regular basis. Maybe that's a hard workout 2 or 3 days a week. Maybe it's 30 minutes of time right after the kids go to bed that you snuggle up on the couch and read a great book or do some yoga. Maybe it's creating a calming get ready for bed ritual. Maybe it's listening to a really good book or podcast while you slow clean the kitchen and wash all the dishes with warm water and allow yourself to unwind. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it works for you and you can feel the difference afterwards. I know you're incredibly busy. I know you have endless amounts of dishes and laundry to do. I know you're exhausted, but I promise that completing the cycle will absolutely change your life. You will be so much better at showing up as the person you want to be. And I firmly believe that you can find something that will help you to complete the cycle, and you will be changed for it. I hope you have found this guide to be helpful in managing your stress. I would love to hear in the comments what you are going to try to do to complete the cycle. Please share this video with another mama who maybe needs some help managing her stress. As women, we really do need each other, and supporting each other in managing stress can be a great way to do that. Next week, we are going to be talking about movement in motherhood, so if you want to hear more about that and stay along for our 6-week journey to being transformed to a healthier version of yourself, then subscribe down below so you don't miss a video. See you next week.